It's not a sunny day, but it's a grand day. I don't mind these kind of days.
No, nothing to sort of have to squint into.
There you go.
As well, which is good.
Now, I know it was October 2017 that Grandparents for Repeal, was that the foundation or just the setup of the Facebook page? I don't know if that was the founding of it.
They both happened at the same time. It
Right.
was the founding
Yeah.
of it, yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
It's a fantastic idea, I think, for most people that, you know, that they assume it's sort of, you know, the concern of a certain kind of angry young generation. But of course, it affects the entire country. It affects everybody. And it, not only those, you know, mothers-to-be, but mothers of mothers-to-be and all these sort of various levels. Have you found it to be, you know, a difficult kind of journey so far? Has it been, you know, I would imagine most people would agree, but obviously there's those who don't. I don't know how it's been for you.
I suppose I'm lucky in that most of the people I talk to agree with me.
Right.
People on my Facebook page don't agree with me and sometimes post that, but on the whole, people listen, and that's basically all you can expect from people,
Right.
is that they listen to you. You can talk to them, you can have good, respectful conversations, listen to them as well, find out what's concerning them about this as an issue, and reply to that.
Now, as a man, I feel like almost, you know, I'm not qualified to really make a call on this. I personally feel, well, of course, a woman should have a right to choose what happens to her body and happens to her life. But I'm trying to be as fair as possible. I'm reading various different articles from, I know that in the Irish Times now, that Dr. Eamon McGuinness, he's the head of the obstetricians and gynecologist institution. He's very much, you know, of the pro-life kind of argument. You know, do you find yourself, does it alter? Do you find when you are listening and when you are debating it that there's valid points that you kind of feel, well, I understand why they feel that way? Because, you know, I just sort of, as I say, assume it should be a right that everybody can choose.
I think that everybody is pro-life. I am pro-life.
Yeah, it's a nasty title, yeah.
Babies. I don't see it in terms of killing unborn babies, which is how it's presented. I see it in terms of all of us. I see it in terms of grandparents supporting daughters and sons who are married and might find themselves in this situation or not married. Grandchildren even coming up to the age where they might start, where they're reaching their reproductive ages now, and so all sorts of things can happen. I know everybody keeps saying this, but it's grey. The older you get, the more nuance there is in life, the more greys there are in life.
Sure.
And the more we feel that we need to support our children in no matter what their choice is.
Right.
One doesn't have to be nobody's pro-abortion either. I mean, and you can be extremely anti-abortion in yourself. You could say, I will never have an abortion.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that you can't be pro-choice.
Right, it doesn't give you the right to stop other people.
Yeah. And I think for me that's one of the most important things about the pro-choice position, is that we would never force anybody to have an abortion. It's down to their choice, always, always, always. What we don't do is force anybody to go through with a pregnancy when it is not the time for them or the circumstances for them to have that pregnancy.
I know that Eamon McGuinness, his argument was that, I think it was that in England, in Britain, that it's down to the both the physical and the mental health of the woman, and that 98%, he argued, of abortions in the country are based on this idea that, and I think particularly he was pointing out that it's the mental health of the mother, and he feels that that's a dangerous area to get into, because I suppose his argument is that people don't necessarily know what's best for them. I don't know exactly how he could justify the idea that is suggesting that the mental health of the mother is not to be taken at such great value. I'm as I say, I'm kind of baffled by the idea that this shouldn't be an easy decision, that it should be a choice that's available, and the health of both the mother and the baby are involved. And it's not a case of, well, it's only about the baby or it's only about the mother. Or
I find some of the arguments very simplistic on the other side. I think that there is a great deal of misunderstanding about the situation with abortion in the UK, about the background to it in England, where it came from, the fact that it's still actually criminal in England to have an abortion.
Right.
In 1967, the way it was set up was that abortion could only be carried out in regulated centres by registered doctors, because they were doing it against the background of backstreet abortion.
Right. Right.
So this is the way they got round that, and that has actually informed the background to some of their legislation, which hasn't changed really since that time. It gets a very different time.
Right.
We are not in that same place. All sorts of factors have changed that. The mental health of the woman, personally, I would find that quite an important thing in how in the decision-making process for that particular woman. But here in Ireland, and incidentally, I would say as well, by maintaining the present situation, we're actually saying that all those UK laws govern us as well, because we are just simply exporting the problem to the UK.
Yeah.
So our abortions are UK abortions, with all the contradictions and all the criticisms that people throw at the UK system, but they're saying, okay, but it's okay for our women because we're pretending they don't exist. If we bring back healthcare, full healthcare to Ireland here, what we will do, in fact, is be able to regulate it for ourselves in a way that suits the Irish people, not for this rather old model in the UK. We will be able to regulate and to control it in a much more hands-on way. And that's what the proposed legislation is all about.
I mean, what I find fascinating is that we live in a time when any debate, any election, any kind of referendum is marred deeply by claims of misinformation and fake news, and certainly on both sides there would be this constant, you know, when you look at pages, Facebook pages, or even, you know, editorials, just this argument that they're trying to demystify the other's arguments. They're sort of saying, well, this is all, you know, they're coming up with statistics that don't exist, and of course that theory of chaos helps a lot of people like Putin and Trump, you know, where people aren't really sure anymore. They just want a definite, and they want almost a Big Brother, you know, situation where they just, somebody else make this decision for me. It's too contradictory, and I don't know if you've found that to be, since starting in October, I don't know if you've noticed that there's a huge amount of, or maybe it's only me, I've noticed a small pattern of misinformation. And
there is misinformation. There's debatable facts and figures out there. What we are trying to do in Together for Yes, which Grandparents for Repeal is part of, that's the coordinated civil campaign, is only deal with facts that we can source, that we can back up, that we can demonstrate are true. And it's quite noticeable that in the Citizens' Assembly, in the Joint Orators Committee, when people went in there, a lot of them were undecided. Some of them were actually anti-choice. When they were presented with the facts, when they were presented with the whole picture, the movement towards a pro-choice position was noticeable and marked. So they went from, I think in the Orators Committee it was something like 53% pro-choice before they heard the evidence, went up to 95 or something like that percent. Those facts might not be completely right. But basically, as you know, that's...
Well, I do think education is the key. It's just knowing the facts and knowing what you're dealing with here, as opposed to the scaremongering that can happen and I guess it's on both sides, that there's a sense of I suppose you could say it's an anger that people feel, well, this is very, very, you know, important to them, and therefore they're going to, you know, shout that the other side is wrong, and that, as I say, it can muddy the waters, because you want to give everybody the moment to be able to say, well, this is what I believe in, this is my particular thought, and yet at the same time it does become almost a shouting match, especially in social media.
Yes, social media perhaps sometimes, but I can assure you that the message from Together for Yes, from all of us who help organise Together for Yes, we really, really have said very straight to all the people in our side of the campaign that we don't want that sort of a message going out there. We want, literally, if people don't agree with us, they don't agree with us.
Sure.
Calling them names or anything like that and shouting too hard is so counterproductive, and also it is disrespectful.
Right.
I don't expect everybody to agree with me, and I have, everybody knows people who don't agree with you about all sorts of things.
Sure. Yeah, it's what the open forum is for, I think. Yeah.
You don't do that sort of thing, and I think that perhaps it is more on one side than on another, this particular scaremongering. I also think that it's in the media's interests to play up.
Sure, the more fireworks, the better.
Yes.
It sort of helps create a certain amount of readership and a certain amount of traction.
Absolutely.
I suppose to finish on a positive note, I do think that we're living in far better times. I mean, ironically, the church is now on its knees. For many people, they don't really feel that the church should tell them how to live or how they should love somebody. And obviously, the marriage referendum, that was a huge sort of step forward for many people, that we are a lot more liberal than maybe we'd been thought of in the past. So I don't know whether you'd be optimistic and feel, well, we are living in better times, that people are able to, express what they know is in this case, well, as I said, I don't want to be too kind of editorially kind of to one side or the other, but I just think everyone should have that freedom to choose. But it does seem to be a better time for this kind of argument in Ireland.
Certainly hope so. I think the point about this is that we want to be a compassionate people, don't we? I mean, we want to care for people, and at the moment we can't care for this section of our society when they need it. And it's not only to do with abortion, it's to do with healthcare. The 8th Amendment affects the whole of reproductive health care during pregnancy for women, whether they have a completely normal pregnancy. From the second that they become pregnant, they lose their voice. They can't, they are only part of an equation, and they are actually the inferior part of that equation. The unborn has more rights than the mother because of the way that the legislation is worded.
Right.
So in that the unborn, doctors can't do anything if there is a risk to the health and the life of the unborn, but only to the life of the mother. So the rights of the unborn are actually wider than the rights of the mother. Also, throughout the whole of pregnancy, if something goes wrong, if for the mother, I mean in the sense that if she gets a cancer diagnosis, she can't be treated. She can't have chemotherapy because that would be dangerous for the baby. If she were run over in early pregnancy, they might not be able to do all they could to save her because it might damage the fetus in some way. There are all sorts of diabetic mothers for whom getting pregnant is very dangerous, can't be helped. Most of the people who get pregnant, most of the women who seek terminations, who need them, are taking contraceptives, they are married, they have children, and they are our daughters and our granddaughters. They need this. They need support all the way through their pregnancies, which, as I say, the 8th Amendment feeds into the National Maternity Plan, which dictates the terms even of delivery, which is why so many midwives and doctors as well would like to see the 8th removed from the Constitution. The Constitution is not a place for medical issues. It's a brick wall. You can't have anything. You can't have any debate about it. You can't have any advances. As science advances, you can't go anywhere if it's constitutional.
Right.
We need this in the hands of medical professionals in consultation with their patients. We do that for everything else.
Sure.
And that's where it should be. And to trust women. Women are not going to rush out willy-nilly and have an abortion, any more than fathers walked out on their families when divorce became legal. which and we had all those things about, well, the second the divorce happens,
Sure.
it doesn't happen. This is Ireland. We're actually very family orientated. We actually are a very supportive people. It will not happen, but when it needs to happen for a woman, we have to do it here in a really caring and supportive way, with our restrictions and legislation around that.